Hello, everybody, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. I am your host, Rex Sykes, and we've got a really special show with two very special guests today. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my guests. By the way, while you're watching at YouTube, the Create Your Best Life with Rex, this program is you can subscribe, you can like, you can engage, you can ask questions, you can leave comments, you can do all of that. And so I encourage you to do that. Also, please share the show. But during our live show, you can ask questions and leave comments in the chat room. So I invite you to do that. They don't always show up because we stream to multiple places and different locations. So I don't always see everything. But when we do see them, we'll definitely put them up on the screen, and our guests can either answer them or discuss them in some way. So be sure to be willing to do that. And then also enjoy yourself and learn something. This show is about transformation and about how do you create your best life ever. So Scott Jones, one of my guests today, began his career as an on-air personality and producer of television and radio shows. He spent several years also as a social worker and grant writer running family self-sufficiency programs. And then he co-founded the Addicted Communities Coalition, a national nonprofit company that operates the One Brother, One Sister program, which is designed to help first responders with issues of addiction, trauma, and mental health. So in conjunction with these two entities, he started Sober Life Studios, developing and hosting several podcasts and other video production services. My other guest is Melodie Wolter, and she blends wellness advocacy, media innovation, and a high-profile asset management to guide clients through transformative journeys of self-discovery and growth. As the vice president of the Art Collection Incorporated, she orchestrated the groundbreaking auction of the Miami Orange Bowl, pioneering the online sale of the stadium's memorabilia and preserving its legacy for future generations. And in her role at the Florida healthcare system, Melodie champions community outreach initiatives emphasizing holistic well-being and mental health awareness. And her leadership was pivotal in organizing the inaugural Mind, Body, Soul Summit, a landmark event that united leaders and community members to explore integrative health approaches. She has the podcast. I'm going to let her tell you about this. Scott has podcast. Well, her podcast is called Melodie's Mindcast. So I'm going to let her tell you about that. And then Melodie and Scott also host a podcast together. And so without any further delay, I'm going to bring up my guests. And again, remember, you have the opportunity to ask questions or leave comments while we're here today. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Scott, and welcome, Melodie. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Rex. Hey, thanks for having us on, man. This is fantastic.
So excited I could hardly sleep. Seriously. I was waiting
She's been talking about it for days.
I have.
So, my friends, tell us a little bit about yourselves, about your shows and things like that, since we're all here. And I'm going to give you the platform for a moment.
Go ahead, Melodie.
All righty. Well, so again, Rex, I'm just so excited to be here because, I'm getting to learn from two gentlemen about how this whole industry works, about, what it's like to be a seasoned professional, just learning, being your mentoring from you. And that just fills my soul up so much. I have been working in the mental health care space in the capacity of business development and marketing for about 15 years. And in 2020, I went through, I guess you can say, an existential crisis, and that born a book that I am currently in the process of publishing. And it's called 311, The Universal Soul Reset. And the book is not about me, Rex. It's about us. It's about the collective consciousness. In 311, the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. And 311 is also significant to me because it is my birthday. And so 311 born a whole bunch of different ideas, people started working from home. People started working on the relationships. Some improved, marriages got stronger, children and parents got along better. We found this work-life balance, maybe started a new podcast, a new job, whatever it may be. But then I was the antithesis of that. I was the total opposite. My life went completely dark. I decided to go full on monk mode, not the sexy, cool one that you find romanticized all over the internet by Jay Shetty and stuff. But it was just a collective feeling that my life and what I had known as my home, which were the structures of the actual physical home, what that meant to me, felt everything was gone. And I gave away everything to my nephews and sons. They were going off to college. And all my furniture, my belongings, collectibles. I was in the art business, fine art business. I had a lot of memorabilia, gave it away, stored it back with my parents, sold all my joy, changed my phone number, changed my email. It was dark. And then I just went off the grid. Only my parents and my immediate family had my phone number. So,
can I ask you a question in all of that?
Sure.
What did you learn? Because, that dark night of the soul that so many of us face is often the impetus for transformation and forward movement. And so your life trajectory was different afterwards than before.
Yeah, it's such a deep question. And we all go through this, right? And I never felt so alone in my life. And I have my parents, thank God. And I have my baby sister who became my big sister. And I had a few people still left that I allowed into my circle. But I had to divorce my husband. I had to let go of a 40-year best friend friendship who was like a daughter to my parents, had been to my children's birth and in my wedding. And I had to let that go. So it was grieving two living deaths, so to speak, people that I really relied on for love and support and that I loved and supported big time. So they were gone. And then essentially the real darkness and then the light that I saw, there was a couple of incidences, but one came in the form of a phone call, and a girl got a phone number, a colleague of mine, and she got it from a friend, I guess a family friend. And she said, "Hey, Mel, I'm not doing so well." She was not doing well. She said, my husband said, "I don't know what else to do with you. You have got to call Melodie and get your Melodie fix." So she called me and she's telling me all this. And my heart sank. Here I was trying to hide from the world. And she didn't know how much I needed her. I needed to hear that somebody needed my help. And that came in the form of just listening. And I just listened. And then I got off the phone and I said, "This is ridiculous. How could I even have such dark thoughts like this, not even wanting to live anymore?" But I wasn't going to let my parents outlive me. I have to do better and remember who my Melodie is, because I used to have that sparkle and I just love lifting people up. So I just had to dig deep and I found her again. It's been a slow road climbing up. But here I am. I'm still alive, and I'm still loving everybody that I can.
Well, that's awesome. Let me. We'll come back to that because I'm going to ask again what you learned or what you did that other people might want to do. But I want to also invite Scott to share as well. So thank you, Scott. Tell us something about you.
Well, something about me is I have some of the best friends in the world with people like Melodie and Rex, people who lift me up and challenge me, and I love that. I spent a great deal of my life, or a portion of my life, buried in a bottle and pills, and drinking and drugging myself into oblivion. And I found recovery, and I found a new way to live. And as Rex said, I spent time being a social worker, writing grants. Then I fell into TV and radio through just some happenstance. I'd always enjoyed stage and screen. And I went full tilt for 20 years on TV and radio. And when it got to a point where it was like, I was starting to burn out on it. Rex, you probably know the burnout that happens when you have these things. You think, "Oh, I want to be famous. I want to be this and I want to be that." And it turns out it's not always what it cracks up to be. And And I had a lot of problems with my own identity, trying to figure out who am I supposed to be, because I go home and I'm a father, or I'm a husband, or I go to work and I'm a DJ, and then I'm a TV commercial guy, then I'm a talk show guy. And there came a point, even in early recovery from alcohol and drugs, where I started to really question, who the hell am I? And what do I want in my life? And that's when my life started to change. I got out of the TV radio. I got involved in helping people. I reconnected with somebody who has been my friend for 45 years. And we started this company together. And through this, the Addicted Communities Coalition and the One Brother, One Sister program, we've been able to help thousands of people across the country. I was just saying beforehand, next week I'm in Jersey helping people, and somebody who works with us is in Tennessee carrying our message in Tennessee. We're doing good things. We're moving the needle a little bit on the problem that is worldwide, which is addictions and mental health. And, I made more money. I was much more comfortable, drove nicer cars, and had a bigger house when I did TV and radio. Mm-hmm. But I sleep better at night now. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, and just to kind of round it all out, I was able to bring my TV and radio here. We built the studio here. This is Sober Life Studios we're in. We built the studios, decorated with my artwork. So that's kind of cool that I get to have that in my life as well. And I get to do shows that are meaningful and impactful. And yeah, every once in a while it's a little silly and it's a little bit of fun, and I laugh and joke around, but really most of it is just trying to reach people so that they don't have to go to, as Melodie was saying, those dark places. I'm going to tell you this though, Rex, there is a benefit to having seen the dark side. There is a benefit to having lived in darkness. It's that you don't need the entire sun to be happy. You just need one little ray of light. And it teaches you gratitude. It teaches you to love and kindness more than most people will ever have. Mm-hmm. I wasn't born with the silver spoon planted firmly up my butt. I never had any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I had to work my ass off for everything I got. Mm-hmm. And I had to go through hell so I can get to a point where now I can live like I'm in heaven. And that's where I'm at today. Melodie and I connected a few months ago, and we started Live Louder podcast, which is a great show if anybody wants to check that out. Excuse me. And if you go to livelouderpodcast.com, you can find out and watch all of our past shows. Hey, my mom is watching. Hi, Mom. We got Sandy Mom on. But yeah, Rex, that's where I'm at. And you and I are working on some projects that I'm really excited that are going to be starting very, very shortly. And again, this is all about when you spend that much time in this kind of self-imposed prison, when you find freedom, you want to tell everybody about it. I'm not preaching on street corners. I'm not yelling at city buses. They lock your ass up for that, so I don't do it anymore. But anybody who wants help, I'm there, and that's what makes my life good today.
Well, that's awesome, and I want to thank you both. We'll come back to that in just a second. Because what you said is gold, both of you, and we want to further that discussion with our guests. But I also want to remind people that you're watching Create Your Best Life with Rex on RexSykesTV.com. Now, I do two shows. I do this one, Create Your Best Life with Rex, and I have incredible guests like Scott and Melodie. But I also do Rex Sykes Movie Beat, which is conversations with filmmakers and what to do and what not to do to navigate a film career. So there's two shows on Rex Sykes TV. So while we're talking. And I wanted to say that the idea that the dark side, I don't. There's probably not a person on the planet, and there may be one, but who hasn't had some area of dark side in their life, or that sees it at the end of their life. So it's funny because so many people try to avoid the dark side rather than embracing it and accepting it and letting it go, because it is that very thing that is the impetus for change. When we get uncomfortable, we want to move. If it's too hot, we want to find coolness. If it's too cold, we want to find heat. So, the challenges in life are opportunities to move forward. And some people will stay stuck in them and tolerate, misery because it's nothing more than familiar. It's what they're used to, and they'd rather hang on to something they're used to, even if it's painful, than to go into the unknown and venture out. But you both have done that. You've seen the dark side or the tough side. You've had a change in your life, and then you have, both of you have been helping countless others with transformation, whether that be mental, physical, spiritual, or addiction, or in other areas. So I think oftentimes, myself included, what we do is when we find a way out of our own problem, oftentimes we want to help other people find ways out of their problems. And it's not about preaching, it's not about, some might or some could, but it's about sharing what you know, because somewhere in even the darkness, there's probably someone who helped one of us, when times were tough. And it may not be the way we would think it would be, or anything, but someone said something, or something happened, or, somebody smiled at the right moment, and it was just enough to kind of have that ray of sunshine. So let's address that a bit, because before the show you were talking about, we said, what do you want to talk about today? And it was how people get themselves into trouble, or how they get themselves stuck, and owning up to that. So I pass it back to you, both of you.
Mel?
So what I say to that is, yes, we never know what somebody else is going through. Whoops, everything okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
We never know what somebody else is going through. And you never know if their house is burned down, they just lost somebody that they loved, or they've just gone through something that they consider traumatic, right? And I can give a recent example, being you, Rex, when Scott was in the hospital, and I knew that you two were trying to communicate and working on some things together, and I felt compelled to reach out to you, and just to let you know what was going on, and I gave you my number, and I remember distinctly when I got home, I was in a haze, and as you know, but for the viewers that don't, I was also simultaneously dealing with my dad just fell, as my co-host was ill and had surgery. My dad fell and needed immediate surgery. Then my nephew was in a horrific accident. And so I really needed to hear from somebody. I was in my car driving home in a haze on autopilot, and my heart was racing, like I felt an earthquake from inside out that just wouldn't calm down. My nervous system was shot because I couldn't do anything to make anybody feel better, and I couldn't make myself feel better. And I was praying that somebody would call me, because it's so hard for me to ask for help sometimes. And I walked into my apartment, Rex, and the phone rang, and I didn't recognize the number, but I took the call anyways. I thought it was going to be a spam, but I answered. And Rex, I don't even really remember what you said, really, honestly, but you gave me words of solace. You checked in on Scott. You listened to me go on about my other two loves of my life, about how they were also in the hospital, and that this was too much. And it's like I needed to purge all that to somebody, but you graciously listened to me, and then you made me feel better. And we've got to do that for other people. It doesn't cost anything, just your time to listen and talk and give words of encouragement. And you did that for me, Rex.
And I got to say, I've always been lucky. I've always been lucky that I've had people around me that were trying to engage me, trying to help me. And much to their dismay, what happened was I was fighting against them to help me or to connect with me. I was using that voice. There's two voices that I have, and I think we all have the two voices. When you get to 3 or 4, it requires medication, I found out.
Yep,
but the two voices, the one voice that says I can't, the one voice that says, but I want to, or I think I can, or something like that. But the I can't voice in my life has always been so loud, so that it drowns out the people who are trying to help.
Mm-hmm.
So that while even somebody is lending a hand or there to say it's going to be okay, I actually have this loudspeaker that goes off in my head that just tries to fight off their words with my own, saying it's not going to be okay. You suck. This person doesn't really care. None of this is real. And that's one of the things we were talking about before the show. What we wanted to talk about today was that that level of stuckness, and I know that's not a real word, but we've adopted it at Live Louder
We
Podcast.
have.
Stuckness is ours. We're going to get stuckness T-shirts and everything.
Unstuck,
Yes,
unsuffer.
unstuckness. But the stuckness is our own creation. It's our own voice telling us we can't. Inside all of us, we want adventure. We want to try new things. We really do, but we get this voice and it gets louder. And that voice, and I've got so many people I should be grateful for. I should be dead. Just 2 weeks ago.
Oh, God,
2 weeks ago, I had a heart attack and I did not want to get help. Quite honestly. And this is after years and years of sobriety, years and years of helping others, telling people to take care of themselves. And I did not take care of myself. But I had one friend, Juan Velez. I'm going to thank him one more time. He is one of the captains at Lauderhill Fire Department. He's a friend of mine, and he happened to be in my office that day. And he looked at me and says, I am taking you. Yes, no, whatever you say, it doesn't matter. I'm taking you to the hospital. They took me to the hospital, and I was in a cardiac crisis. And this was, but this is indicative of my whole life. And I think of so many of us. We always feel alone. We always feel like there's nobody there to help us. We always feel like that, but that's the voice in your head telling you that. I promise you, if you just open your eyes and put your hands out, somebody's there to grab you. There's somebody there. There always is. There always is. And you know what? And if you start to ignore that voice long enough, that other voice that you have, that one underneath, starts to come up and say, you know what? I got this. I'm okay. I can make it through this. This is a tough time. We crave excitement all the time in our movies and in our amusement rides and in our, driving fast and doing all that stuff. But what we do is all of a sudden, when we get some sort of excitement that comes into our little personal world, we start to panic and we start to shut down and everything else instead of, hey, you know what? If there's a wave coming, grab a surfboard, ride the wave, just have fun. But know that if you feel that there's nobody there for you, I promise you, that's your voice telling you that. That's not the honest truth.
Right.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I have two memes that I share, and they're approximate what you just said. One is we crave change, but fear it.
Yes.
And the other is we fear change, but crave it.
Yes.
And what happens, I think, for so many people is we've got these repetitive tape loops that we've learned. And, Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
And so often we go, I can't do this. Nothing's going to work out. Everything sucks. I'm going to go eat some worms. And if I find that happening for me, I try to then shift it, because Ford also said, I never let what I cannot do prevent me from doing what I can. So I have to shift it. We have to go, instead of going, I hate this, I don't like it, I can't stand it, I'm going to eat worms or whatever. Say, how can I make this better? What can I do? What steps might I take? What am I not thinking about that I need to think about that, if I were, everything might change? Because so often it's kind of like most innovation in industry comes from outside the industry. It doesn't come from the very people seeking the solution. It comes from outside that area where somebody says, oh, it's like on the other side of the fence. And that's where we need to go so often. And because we crave change, but fear it, and fear change, but crave it, so many people remain stuck.
Yeah. What I hate is when I hear this thing, I got a fear of success.
Yeah.
I don't think that's actually a thing. You know what the fear is? The fear is the responsibility that comes with success. Mm-hmm. And the other fear is, if I'm going to move forward and be successful, I have to leave something behind. And we don't like to leave stuff behind, even if it's stuff that we hate. Even if it's stuff that we hate. Hey, that's my crime podcast friend. Hey, Therese is with us.
Therese.
Hey, Therese.
Also my nephew Gabe.
You got that? I mean, people, no matter how bad the situation is, don't want to let go of it, because better the devil you know. I'm not really afraid of success. Somebody hands me a suitcase full of money, I'm not going to complain that it's not crisp, clean bills. I don't care if they're dirty as hell. Well, I'm not worried about success. What I'm worried about is if I'm successful now, I've got to maintain and be responsible.
That's it. That's what people are afraid of. Yeah.
No, you're both very, very true. And I think, so often it's silly psychological notions that have gained popularity and acceptance because they're expressed and they aren't thought well through. whether we sabotage ourselves. To me, it's just if you understand how the brain works, you can't sabotage yourself. You only do what the brain does.
Watching your work on that. Explain
Yeah,
that a little bit.
I mean, the brain works in a certain. It's kind of like if all the brain could do is go right, and so you're going around in circles. That you're not sabotaging yourself. You're doing what the brain does naturally. So the key is just to learn how to direct it in a way that serves you the way you want to be served, instead of the way it learned to do, which is what you don't want. Your point, and both of your points to don't fear success. I love success, but with success comes responsibility, comes money, comes the IRS, comes different jobs. That's what people don't. I think you're just so accurate on that, because but again, it's that notion of, well, you can fear failure, you fear success. It's like saying, I want to be confident. And I'm like, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
If I said to you, Scott, could you go get me a glass of water? Would you have to go, okay, I'm going to go get the water? Or would you just get up and get it? There's a certain thing about being confident and competent, because you should be confident that you can learn to do anything if you put in the time, the energy, the effort. If you make the investment and the commitment, you could learn it. You may not be the best in the world at it, but you could learn to do it. If you wanted to learn to juggle, play the piano, learn to sing, learn to dance, learn to speak, learn to whatever, cook, sell, invest, you can do it.
Right.
I'm the best investor in the world before you're there yet may not be the best thing to think about, unless you can use that and step into that. But with confidence, because you don't want to go, I'm the best tightrope walker in the world, and have never walked a tightrope, get up on a tightrope and fall on your face, 40 feet. You want competence to come along with your confidence, and you want confidence to come along with your competence. So it's this looping of it. And so many people have one step, but they don't have the other step, or, so it's that blend. I can do it. And as I do it, I will learn more things. It's kind of like the wheel might be hard to start at first, but after a while, it creates its own momentum.
Well, it's how do you get to the tightrope at the Met? How do you get there? Practice, practice, practice. You don't get there by just saying, I want to be there. And I think that's what we've fallen into, I think, with some of this, this motivational, motivational this and motivational that, and coach on this and coach on that. And I need somebody to direct me and to do this and to do that. If you want something, you go get something. Now, if I want to learn to juggle, it'd be much easier for me to learn from somebody who knows how to juggle. But I'm not going to learn by just sitting there watching him juggle and me never grabbing the balls.
Yes.
Once in a while, you got to grab the balls in your own hands and play with them.
Yeah.
That came out so wrong. It really
okay.
did.
You're playing with the other guy's balls. That's pretty hefty thought there, Scott.
Yeah, I know. I got that. But I'm a lonely man. I got to, but we want to learn to play the piano. I could pay a piano teacher all day, but until I actually put my fingers on the keys and do it myself, there's no learning going on. There's observation, not learning.
But there is some interesting things about that. So one is, and here's what I always say: if you want to learn to juggle, first realize you're going to drop balls. That's just part of it. While you're doing it, you're going to drop it. So get over that, because if you let a drop ball stop you from juggling, then you're missing. You're missing out. So you have to get through the learning curve. Secondly, in order to get better at juggling, you have to keep doing it. And the more you do it, the better you get. The better you get, the more you do it, the further you can go. Now, if you've juggled and you're in the presence of a juggler who's juggling really well, all you have to do is sit there and watch, because we have this thing called mirror neurons, and you will do the same kind of micro muscle movements as they will, and it will make sense to you, and you'll be training your neurology by watching. It's helpful for them to coach you and to guide you, because they're qualified to do that. But the point is, being in the presence of a master, if you are an aspirant, an apprentice, then that really has some incredible benefits for you. There are plenty of studies that will say people played the piano, the other people imagined playing the piano, and then the other people did nothing. People imagined lifting a dumbbell. A group of people lifted the dumbbell, and the other group did nothing. Interestingly, with the dumbbell and the piano, I'm just going to quote the dumbbell. The ones who lifted the dumbbell for a couple of weeks at a certain number of reps had a 35% improvement in muscle size and ability. the people who did nothing but visualize lifting the dumbbell of that weight and those reps had a 17% improvement. Now, some people go, that's less than half. And they're missing the point.
Of
Yes.
course.
That 70% improvement doing nothing but imagining lifting the dumbbell or playing the piano. So that tells you that your brain, if you do it and you do it repeatedly and consistently for long enough, you will have benefit. And so many people, and I think that when we're talking about being stuck, they stop themselves before they ever start. They talk themselves out of it. They think, I can't do it. It's no good. It won't be worth it, or it's too hard, or it's this or that. If somebody says, hey, you want to go out to dinner? And they go, I'd like to, but I don't have money. I can't afford it, or you don't have the time. They're letting that last part of that sentence dictate what they do.
Right. Right. And I agree. And I think that's, maybe I didn't say it properly, but that's what I was saying. Unless you're willing to put your hands on guitar strings, you're never going to learn guitar, no matter how much you watch a guitar player. However, if you have the willingness and you're motivated to start and you're to do it badly, my grandfather used to tell me anything worth doing is worth doing badly.
Yeah.
So if it's worth doing it, it's worth doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But it's that motivation you have to have. That's yourself. That's your own thing. Nobody can give that to you, the willingness to put your fingers on a guitar string and start strumming. But once you do that, then everything becomes a learning lesson. What do you think?
And I actually have like my own case study. So when I started with Florida Healthcare System, it'll be about 2 years now that I've been with them. And I had always wanted to get, I don't know why I did this to myself, Rex, but I had always wanted to get my real estate license. But I had told myself, and my parents would remind me, you're a terrible test taker. Now, granted, I got my master's degree. I was the first recipient of the human resource management degree at Nova Southeastern University. They didn't even have a program. I'm the one who started it. I went to the dean. I said, I'll be your guinea pig. But here I was starting a new job, and I really wanted to get my real estate degree. I thought it'd be cool. And so I kept putting it off for some stupid reason. Like I was telling myself this stuff. I found this lady that resonated, Michelle Early, Magnolia School of Real Estate, signed up online, passed the first time. And I'm like, what was I telling myself this narrative that I'm a terrible test taker? And it was, and the test is notoriously known for not being easy. I mean, you take it like some people take it 6 times before they pass it. Once you make a decision to go all in, and you want to retain that information, then you're going to do it. I never really did, I guess.
But that's exactly what we're talking about here today is that all those things, these roadblocks, these things that stumble us up, we create ourselves. I mean, how many people have looked at something and said, "Oh, we're going to jump over this little creek or something. We're all going to jump over," and you get the one person saying, "I can't." Well, have you ever tried to jump that far? No, I just can't. I know I can't, and it's almost like that's our more automatic response than the positive response of, "Hey, let's go and let's try it." And once you start down that path of saying I can't, it moves into every area of your life. Everything. I promise you that. Dealing with mental health and addiction, the minute you start saying I can't, it takes over everything.
And just coming up with those excuses. I start coming up with excuses. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, I got to do this with the kids. It was always an excuse.
Yeah.
Always. And you can come up with them for the rest of your life, and then you're going to be on your deathbed.
Rex, why do we do this?
Terrible.
We're going to look for you to the answer. You got to have the answer. Why do people do this to themselves? They immediately say, I can't before anything else.
Well, they grew up that way. It was just a habit. I mean, we can think about all the things, all the possible reasons, but they've done it enough that now becomes the first thing they do when they encounter a situation.
Yeah.
And that's where neuroplasticity comes in, right, Rex?
Right. Well,
it comes in. And
well,
that's what
neuroplasticity can work for you or against you. In other words, all that means is the brain is pliable. If you use it in a particular way to your benefit, you can benefit. But if you use it in a particular way to your ill health or other things, then it'll do that. It is the problem that we have as people is that we have this enormously powerful thing between our ears or through our entire nervous system, actually, because our gut is part of our brain. Everything is, it's all intertwined. I say we have a MADI, mind and body, it's a MADI. But the point is that, and I use this analogy, and and when I'm done with the analogy, I have to point out something else. But if you don't know how to ride a horse, and you get on a horse, the horse will take you where it wants to go, or it'll stay put, and you won't be able to go anywhere. The horse is in charge. But if you learn how to become an expert rider, then you tell the horse where you want to go, and the horse delivers you to that spot. Same with the brain. But that's not how we grow up. We grow up learning, I can't do this, or don't do that. Or somebody says, well, yes, but have a plan B, or you're never going to amount to anything. And we internalize these things, and they become our mental thought habits. So they become those loops that run incessantly, the critical voices, the bad feelings, and everything. And the only way that you get free of it is by becoming an expert rider, by saying, I'm not going to go there, I have to go here, and practicing it in the same way that if you wanted to be a juggler, you have to put down the TV control and get up and juggle. If you want to play the piano, you have to stop reading whatever or going outside and playing and sit down and practice your scales and triads until you are able to play music. And then only after having done it will you know how to do it.
Of course, yeah.
Because the Wright brothers kept trying to fly, and they were bike manufacturers. They didn't know how to fly a plane.
Crashing and burning.
They kept experimenting. They kept getting it wrong, and everybody told them they were idiots. And then one moment they flew, and they're like, okay, now we know how to do it. Now we can tweak it. Now we can get better. And as a result, we're at the outer edges of the universe with satellites and, rocket ships and all this kind of stuff because of the work that these people did way back, in the 19th century. But with that, let me put it on pause a second to just say thanks to everybody who's leaving comments and communicating in the chat room. And because when you're watching live, you have the ability to interact with my guests and me. In replay, you don't do that. So that's why I always encourage people to show up live if they want to interact, engage, ask questions, or leave comments, to do it live. And I know it's not always convenient because, some places it's middle of the night and other places it's middle of the day, whatever. But also the replay of this is at Rex Sikes, Create Your Best Life with Rex, the YouTube channel, and it's immediately available the second the show is done broadcasting. So if you want to share this to your friends, you go grab that link and you share it with your friends. And again, we've got a couple of shows on Rex Sikes TV. And lastly, these two guests of mine do the Live Louder podcast together. And you can see it on Scott's, and it's now scrolling over. Be sure to go and watch and listen to their podcasts as they do them, when they do them, and subscribe to their channel and comment and like and do all the things that you would and that you're graciously doing here. And so I thank you with that. With that, I pass the mic back to both of you.
I love the analogy you made with the and thanks for the shout outs, but I love the analogy you made with the Wright brothers, because you have to know that while they were designing it and they couldn't figure out what size to make the wing or what angle to put the flaps or what to do, they're probably tearing up pieces of paper, walking away from the table saying, this is never going to work. And then they come back and they sit down and they say, okay, wait, let me see what we could do. And then out on the tarmac, they were brothers. They probably had fist fights,
Yeah.
The plane wouldn't get off the ground, and Orville beat the crap out of Wilbur, and then Wilbur ran over Orville. That all went on, and they said, this is never going to work. This is it. They go home. They get up next morning and say, okay, let's go try again. And that is how you defeat negative thinking. It's by every once in a while, you're going to get upset. Every once in a while, you're going to hit a golf shot, and it's going to go off into the woods. And as the ball flies into the woods, you're going to say, son of a gun. And then it ricochets off the tree, hits the green, and you hit a hole in one.
The fact that anybody can ever hit a hole in one is one of the most amazing things in the world.
I know, it's crazy.
So,
but all I'm saying is this: because we have a negative thought doesn't mean that we have to believe in that thought or buy fully into it. You want to get mad and kick the dirt because you threw an interception? Fine, get mad and kick the dirt. But in about 30 seconds, you're going to have another play. You're going to have to do it again. And if you get into the huddle with the other players and say, I'm just going to throw another interception, guys, you may as well just go sit on the bench. Game's over. But you get up there and you say, okay, I can't suck every time. One of these times I'm going to nail this thing. And I love that. And I just get pictures about Orville and Wilbur beating the crap out of each other.
It reminds me, and I'm not even sure if this is verbatim, but Wayne Gretzky, I think, said it best. You miss 100%. You miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Yes. I don't know if that was Gretzky or not, but that was that was.
He might have used it, but
I think a lot of people
stuck with me because
I love that.
You're never. It takes these inventors. These people are coming out with Google and YouTube and everything else. I mean, it took hundreds and thousands of trial and error, and people keep forgetting it, and people want a quick fix. I go to the gym and everybody's like, oh, it's so easy for you. I'm like, no, I want pizza. I want the whole thing. And I'm working out because I want to eat it, and, you choose your hard in life. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Being in a relationship is hard. Being lonely is hard. Choose your hard. Starting a business is hard. Not having your own autonomy is harder.
The regret of everything you haven't tried, it sinks in. You don't have to have perfect.
Who wants that? And
people want perfect confidence before they do anything. I'm not going to do it unless I'm absolutely sure. Now, listen, there's two times when you need confidence before you do something: skydiving and gator wrestling. Those two things, if you don't have perfect confidence, don't do them. But everything else is trial and error. And like I said, some of the most fun I've ever had on a golf course, the most maddening sport in the world, and I love it. Some of the best laughs I ever had were the times when I played my worst, just because it's like, hey, you know what? Or I play a whole game and every shot I hit is terrible. Then the very last hole, I hit a shot that I've never hit in my life. It's a beauty, and I'm going to remember that one. And it was worth the whole day for that, right, Rex?
Yeah, have you ever seen those videos of early attempts at flying? People with wings jumping off of cliffs and things going off of rooftops crashing and biplanes going off an edge. You ever see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so they thought they could do it. They were confident that they could do this. And they crashed. And here's what I say, where it's good that you're confident, but if you want to learn to fly, start at the ground and fly up. Don't start at the top and fly down, because if you make a mistake, you're going to crash. But people are worried about the mistakes. Well, if you do it properly, you're not going to make a mistake. What if I fail? What if you fail? Here's an interesting thing. A friend of mine said this the other day. He said, if it doesn't work out, I'll just take it as God saying there's a better option. Helen Keller said, when one door closes, you have to see the door that's opening over here. And she was blind, right? But the point is that we hear these platitudes, and they're like gospel. They're true. They're accurate. They work. But most of us don't do them. So they say, well, when one door closes, another one opens. But if you really believed that, if you had a problem and there was a challenge and there was an obstacle or you were stuck, you'd go, okay, well, maybe I have to redirect. Maybe I have to do something a bit differently. Maybe I have to, I always liken it to going down a river in a canoe. The river's going to carry you some of the way, if it's moving. Yeah. But if you've got a paddle or your hands or a sail or whatever, you can decide what side of the river or where you're going to be in the river. So you have to learn to navigate your life and go, sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't work out. If they don't work out, it only means, and guess what? Even if it's only a reframe, which people say, well, it's a reframe. That's not true. It's just a reframe. Even if it's only a reframe, that's where the power is.
Absolutely. Your power's in your perception and how you see things and how you interpret things and what you take away from things. That's what everything is. Rex, I want you to imagine, what if you knew everything?
What?
What's going to happen. You know what's going to happen in 10 minutes from now when you walk up to play the lotto. You know exactly what's going to happen. Everything. You watch a brand new movie that comes out, but you already know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
How much would you enjoy that life?
Yeah.
I don't think much, and I think there was a Twilight Zone like that.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Everybody wants confidence and safety, and they're like, I want to know what's happening. It's like, you know what? Imagine if you did. The joy is in the discovery, and I cannot tell you the amount of inventions, everything from champagne to Dr. Pepper, that were invented by mistake because somebody screwed something up. and something beautiful happened because of it.
And you want to know something? I think we actually talked about this with you, Rex, and I made a comment about this last time. I don't think people are scared to fail. They're afraid how they're going to look when they perceivably fail, right? Perceived failure.
Well,
and I found that not giving a care has remedied all of that. I really don't care anymore, because once I start doing it, like, this is a dream for me. Talking to you guys is a dream for me right now in real time. I'm having the time of my life. I can't tell you. But if I didn't put myself out there and create my own opportunities, to be open to the opportunities of the people that I'm going to meet, that are going to connect me with the right people, to put me in the right spot, to be able to have these conversations that are so poignant and important right now. Our world needs these conversations to come out, because everybody's still hiding from the pandemic and the aftermath. Everybody's still detached. People are not doing live in-person events anymore, Rex. I go to them here, but they're sparse, man. It's sad. And I love to hug. I want to talk to you. I want to feel your emotions in front of me, feel it all, and our collective consciousness, our world is crying for connection.
Oh, I think you're right on there. I think everybody wants to be far more connected, and I think the work that you and Scott and I and others, hopefully do, is to connect people and uplift them and edify them, so that their days become more magnificent, more miraculous, more magical, and more memorable, so that they live the kind of lives that they want. I want to go back to something I think you said a moment ago, Melodie, and just put it into this context. There are people, if I say, "Hey, did you hear what happened today on the news?" and people go, "I don't watch the news. I got rid of my TV set. I unplugged. I don't have anything to do with that." Or have you ever been watching a movie and you get lost in thought, and then you go, "Wait a second, I got to replay that," and so you go back on Amazon or Prime or wherever it is that you replay it, and you go, and then you forget about it again, and you go, "Oh wait, I got to replay." Sometimes you do it more than once.
Yes.
Well, that's what you need to do with that inner critical voice that stops you. The only time you want an inner critical voice to stop you is if you're doing something wildly stupid and physically dangerous, like close my eyes and run out in traffic. No,
Yeah.
then your brain should go, "Wait, idiot, that's not cool. Stay where you are." But if you go, "I'm going to try and make some money," unless you say, "I'm taking all my money and I'm putting on black 21, your brain should go, "Hey, idiot, the house wins more often than the guy with black 21. You have to understand that we need to be able to ignore the less than glorious thoughts and feelings and behaviors that we have, in the same way that we ignore the news or bad news or tune out or listen to music and you get caught up in something else and you go, "Wait, I want to play that song."
Yeah.
Stop paying attention to the stuff that is harming or preventing you from doing. That's why Ford said, "I never let what I can't do prevent me from doing what I can do."
Right.
Because if you give it a voice, if you give it attention, if you give it a volume, if you give it a platform, it will do exactly what it's always done, and that will be to stop you from doing the things that you want to do.
And something that was crazy, like my voice. I wanted to be an actress when I was a kid, but I think it was really just my voice that I wanted to get out there. I just wanted to help people. I always try to stick up for these kids that were being bullied, and I felt like my voice and my personality somehow was able to diffuse situations, especially from kids being ostracized. I always got along with just everybody, or tried to. I wasn't liked by everybody. I'm perfectly imperfect, whatever. But I just always felt that my voice was the way to really help not only save myself, but other people. Right? Because I've lost too many people in my life that should still be here. And so has Scott. And everything that we say and do is so important. We got to be super careful how we delicately listen to some very dark things sometimes. We just have to appreciate that person and give them a hope and light. And we're proof of that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, Rex was making the point about, there are times when your voice comes up and it's like, and it's kind of a warning for you, based on experiential evidence. Don't touch the hot stove. The voice says, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. But that's based on experiential evidence. It's all the times that we think we can't change, or that we see people. What's amazing is when you look in a mirror, it's very difficult to see the things you see in other people when you look at them.
Yes.
They got two eyes, they got a nose like you, they got a mouth, they got two ears, and they got hair, or they're bald, or whatever it might be. When you look at them, you could see so many things. I could see the superstar in you. I could see this in you. And I think we're being genuine a lot of the times. Sometimes you placate, but we're being genuine. But then we look at ourselves and all we see are the limitations. And I think Rex is absolutely right. This is practice. This is something that happens. Your friends, your parents, even as a child, it's like you're too small to do that. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. There's a lot of negative reinforcement that goes on, and we got to battle that. We got to battle that as we grow into adulthood. And you get to the point where it's like, all right, do I want to continue to listen to those things that applied to me when I was 4 years old and 3 foot tall? Or I don't know how tall 4-year-olds are. It's like, I have no idea. I'm terrible with heights and names and ages and people. But as you become an adult, I want people to know, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what challenges you think you're facing or that you actually may be facing, your attitude, your outcome is directly dependent upon how you go into it, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, like Ford said. If you decide, if you spent your whole life waking up being miserable every morning, and what do people say, Rex? I'm not a morning person. I'm miserable in the morning. I'm not a morning person. And I'm thinking, like, you choose not to be a morning person, because guess what? That's a habit that can change. That is a thing that can change. That's something that can break if you want it to. If we started talking into realities like, I choose to be miserable in the morning, I wonder how many people would start to change those habits.
Well, think of it this way. If you were imprisoned somewhere and all you had to eat were something that you absolutely hated, after a while, you'd be eating what you absolutely hated. And if that was the only thing you got, you would be looking forward to getting that food because it's the only sustenance you have. I mean, you would develop a taste for it. I'm not saying that that's desirable. I'm just saying that you can learn to do anything, really, if you put your mind to it. There's this, you made a good point about the mirror. When you look into the mirror, you don't actually see yourself the way you look. You see the mirror reflection of you, so everything is reversed. But you think that's you when you look in the mirror, but it's not. It's an image in the mirror that's reflected in your brain, and blah blah blah. Here's the thing: there is this disorder called body dysmorphism, where somebody looks at their nose is perfectly fine. They go, I don't like my nose, and all their life they think their nose is, or they don't like their legs or their butt or their whatever, and everybody else doesn't have a problem with it, but they do. So consider this for a second. The most disparaged person on the face of the planet was a fictional person called Pollyanna, because they go, oh, you don't read Pollyanna, rose-tinted glasses, she's too toxically positive. There's no such thing as toxic positivity. That's another one of those names made up by silly people to disparage something that is a tool that you can use to change your life. You cannot be too positive unless you're stupid about it, like I said about closing your eyes and running into the road. If you're not thinking positive, what's the alternative? If you're not thinking thoughts that move you forward in a productive way, what's the alternative? If you're not looking for the golden or silver lining or that single ray of sunshine, what are you looking for? And the problem with most people is they're focused on what they don't want, what hurts them, what they don't like, what they can't do, and all the things. And they whine, they complain, they blame, and they excuse, and then go, life sucks. It's like a bowl of cherries. Why am I in the pit? Mm-hmm. Well, because of what you're focused on. So the key is, and we're almost out of time here, but the key is to shift your attention. 50 years ago, in teaching and workshops, we were going cancel. If somebody says something to you that you don't like it, you don't have to go cancel to their face, but in your head you go, no, cancel that. I'm going to do this instead. It's having the mind, the awareness that if there's something you don't like, don't stop there. Direct it to what you do like, to what you can do, to what you would appreciate, to how it would benefit you or somebody else. because if you only stop, you're stopped. But if you turn and redirect, now you have another step to take, or another step to take, or another step to take,
Yeah.
and that's what you want to do. And that will create its own momentum, just like learning how to juggle, you'll get better at it. So
Stacking your wins, right? You got to stack those wins as well. Celebrate those small wins.
Absolutely.
in about 2 minutes, I want to give you 2 minutes to kind of sum up, say whatever you want in the last 2 minutes, and then we're going to have to say so long.
Oh, it went by
Well,
too quick.
let me give a couple shout outs because I saw a few names pop up. Sandy Mom was out there with us. Teresa's out there. Karen from Crazy Back Costumes in Fort Lauderdale, she joined us, and a few others out there. Thank you all for joining in. I believe Karen Hurley was on there for a while too. Thank you all for joining in. We appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you. Bottom line is this: if you ever have any doubt about anything, Don Henley, Glenn Fry had it right. So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the key. If you are stuck, if you are feeling like you can't, really ask yourself, who's telling me this?
Mm-hmm.
Who's telling you this? And how do you know this as factual information?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know it as factual information and the only voice that's telling you that is your own, then it's your choice not to do something. Stop looking around for people to blame. And make sure you guys check out Live Louder podcast and check out the Rex and Scott podcast coming in just like a week and a half.
So
it's going to be great.
Yay.
Say
So,
goodbye.
gentlemen, June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I just want to tell you and everybody else, every day is Mental Health Awareness Day. You've got to be kind to your mind and others. We have to take care of each other in this world. And so feel free, for free, go to YouTube, Melodie's Mindcast. I blend a little bit of neuroscience. I put in a nice little visualizer in there, and we can start restoring the neuroplasticity to get that brain working better and develop some healthy habits in your business, body, whatever it is you're working on, and having a better life, because we all deserve to have a beautiful life, but it's just up to us to decide that.
And of course, Rex, we both thank you so very much for including us in on your very special podcast. We appreciate it.
And tonight's read.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, you just stay right there while I close out the show then, because I got to tell people about the book. And
excellent.
But thank you. Yeah, and be sure to check out Melodie's podcast and the podcasts that they do together. And if you didn't catch it, go back and rewind the show. Remember that the replay link is right here. If you can see it, it's Create Your Best Life with Rex on YouTube. And you can do that. The show that you're watching is Create Your Best Life with Rex on Rex Sites TV. My show next week is Michael Seibel. He's a director. He's directed a number of movies. It's going to be Rex Sites Movie Beat, and that will be, I think, on, when we regularly broadcast this show. So wherever you are in the world, if you want to watch that, I invite you to join us. And also, Melodie's holding up the book. So if you get your book, you can see it right there, rexsikes.com/book. You go there, you buy the book. There's instructions there when you get there that will tell you that if you get the book and you come back to that webpage and you do something very easy, you just take your receipt code from Amazon and put it in the box.
Okay,
I
need to do that.
I know you have to do that. I will gift you a $497 online video training on how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your behaviors, and any talent or skill that you want to do easier and more swiftly and more enjoyably than anyone else might tell you how to do it. Because if you're not doing it with fun and play and delight, you're missing a whole lot of wonderful stuff. So go get the book, get the training, and then review it at Amazon. Send me a photo.
I left a review. I haven't seen
Melodie
it yet.
put a great photo up today of her with the book, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I've been on their podcast recently, so you can go and watch that, but watch their shows because they're excellent. And Scott and I are going to do this thing coming up very soon. We're excited about that too. So everybody, I want to tell you, as I always say, if you think of something as a problem, it's a problem. If you think of something as a blessing, it can be a blessing. So the goal is to celebrate all of it, celebrate everything. And with that, I'm Rex Sikes. You've been watching Create Your Best Life with Rex, with Scott Jones and Melodie Wolter. And we'll see you the next time. We'll see you back here again and again and again and again. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. And anytime you have the opportunity to share the show out, please do, because I can't do it all alone. It requires, other people to put the word out in places that I could never even think of or have any ability to reach. So I want to thank you for that, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of the day, all. And with that, we're going to say so long. Enjoy. And